negative speaker. So for their significance claims, the affirmative makes their first point is that drug laws do not have an effect on drug use. However, I'm making the claim that drugs do have an effect, and drug laws do have an effect on general drug use. So according to the New South Wales Bureau of Crime Statistics and Research, New South Wales is in Australia, prohibition of drugs, so the illegality of drugs, deters use, especially among at-risk teens. 29% of teens in a study listed illegality of the substances as a reason that they do not use. 91% of weekly users indicated that they would use more of the substance if it were legal. This data implies that drug laws regulating the usage and possession have a substantial and significant effect on use of drugs, and would show that drug laws do seem to work, at least in bringing down the general population's usage. Also, according to Antonia Maria Costa, who is the executive director of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, Sweden is an excellent example. Drug use is just a third of the European average, while spending on drug control is 3 times the EU average. For 3 decades, Sweden has had consistent and coherent drug control policies, regardless of which party is in power. There is a strong emphasis on prevention. Drug laws have been progressively tightened, and extensive treatment and rehabilitation opportunities are available to users. The police take drug crime seriously. Governments and societies must keep their nerve and avoid being swayed by misguided notions of tolerance. They must not lose sight of the fact that illicit drugs are dangerous, that is why the world agreed to restrict them. So according to this testimony, which comes from probably the main authority on any international drug problems, stricter drug laws saw a decrease in use and a change in public opinion on the usage of drugs, which backs up my point that stricter drug laws do seem to work. For their second point, significance point, the affirmative claims that drug laws cause high incarceration rates for citizens. My claim is that many citizens that are incarcerated are not law-abiding citizens, even before the drug use is taken into account. So, according to a study by the Center of Addiction and Substance Abuse in 2006, drugs were a significant factor in roughly 80% of violent offenses, and roughly the same for property crimes and parole violations. These statistics, again, would show a strong correlation between drug possession and use and crimes committed. Also, according to the book Treating Drug Problems by Gerstein and Hardwood, there's a strong connection between drug use and criminal behavior. Drug use studies show that 2/3 of all male and female arrestees tested positive for at least one drug. So even in non-drug related arrests, drugs are still a major factor in these criminal activities. Also, according to the Department of Justice, the U.S. Department of Justice's Bureau of Justice Statistics, only 296 inmates in the federal prison system are there for drug possession alone. Also, according to the same bureau, of the entire prison population in the U.S., only 15.7% are there for drug possession, not the claimed 25%. So, sure, strict drug laws do have an increase in incarceration rates, especially in the U.S., but it is worth noting that strict drug laws also address the overwhelming evidence that drug users are associated with a vast majority of violent crimes, violent and destructive crimes, by keeping them off the streets. Now, for their third claim, the affirmative states that drug incarceration does not help reduce drug use. So they feel that there are no other options at the moment other than jail for addicts that are convicted. Let's see. So according to, and my claim against this is that there are actually quite a few programs already in place, and that the whole argument they're trying to make is rather pointless. So according to drugfacts.org, which is a database dedicated to chronicling data and studies on the war on drugs, there are already over 3,000 drug courts that are in the US. So a drug court are problem-solving courts that take the public health approach using a specialized model in which judiciary, prosecution, defense bars, probation, law enforcement, mental health, social service, and treatment communities all work together to help addicted offenders in long-term recovery. These drug courts give non-violent drug users the opportunity to enter rehab instead of jail. So if you're a non-violent offender, it's your first time you get convicted for drug use, a lot of the times if you if the circumstances are right, you get sent to these drug courts where you're assigned rehab instead of jail time. So these courts have been, let's see. So the system has been in place since the early 90s and has grown substantially since then. And this program, among others, would imply that there are already systems in place to help non-violent drug offenders stay out of jail and get clean. Also, one last point, according to the Huffington Post article about the drug war, the funding breakdown for the war on drugs for 2015 was $10.9 billion set aside for prevention, while interdiction only had $3.9 billion and enforcement had a smaller, had a $9.2 billion budget. So again, looking at the evidence, it would seem that there is already a substantial system in place that offers drug addicts support instead of jail. Thank you.